Hello, and welcome to Section 3, Lesson 10 of the Artificial Intelligence Unit. Today you will read Known Unknowns and an excerpt, pages 240 to 243 from Chapter 19 of the Fourth Age, to determine the benefits and challenges AI might create in the future. You will discuss ways of mediating issues between humans and artificially intelligent beings, and you will add details about future AI social challenges to the Understanding AI tool. Here are the learning targets for this lesson. Can you explain the potential benefits and challenges of the future of artificial intelligence? Can you form a claim and provide evidence to support that claim? If you notice, this is very similar to the previous lesson's learning targets. You will now read pages 240 to 243 from the Fourth Age to establish your understanding. When you are done reading, you will react to what you have read. Listen to and follow along with the read aloud of pages 240 to 243 from the Fourth Age. As you read and listen, consider the reading focus. How does this text describe the potential benefits and challenges that the future of artificial intelligence presents? Now turn to page 79 in your unit reader. The reading is found on pages 79 through 82. There is an inherent challenge in predicting things based on only one data point. The only conscious things we know of for certain are us. This makes it harder to figure out what makes us conscious. The question of life on other planets finds a similar problem. It doesn't matter how many zeros there are on the number of planets in the universe, because we don't know the number of zeros in the likelihood of life forming. We have only one data point. There are two distinctly different pathways to machine consciousness. One is the straightforward, if you can call it that, proposition that machines will one day have a ta-da moment and gain consciousness. That's usually what we think of when we ask, can machines become conscious? But there is a second path which involves taking our consciousness, that lightning in a bottle that is each of us, and uploading it to a computer. There would be many obvious advantages to uploading our core essence, ourself, to a machine. It seems like a match made in heaven. We have the consciousness, the passion, the joie de vivre. The machine has that direct connection to the internet, that super fast processor, and all that perfect storage. Could we, if you will excuse the pun, hook up? Sam Altman thinks that's the way to go. A merge is our best scenario. Any version without a merge will have conflict. We enslave the AI, or it enslaves us. The full-on crazy version of the merge is we get our brains uploaded into the cloud. I'd love that. We need to level up humans because our descendants will either conquer the galaxy or extinguish consciousness in the universe forever. What a time to be alive! James Lovelock, who articulated the Gaia hypothesis that we explored earlier, also is in favor of the merge strategy. I think, like all organisms on Earth, our species has a limited lifespan. If we can somehow merge with our electronic creations on a larger scale in endosymbiosis, it may provide a better next step in the evolution of humanity and Gaia. Merging with machines could be considered similar to the practice of marriages between the offspring of different monarchies as a method to secure peace. Throughout history, this commingling of blood and the mutual interest of parties in the offspring of such unions was sometimes a force for peace and stability. I say sometimes because history is full of exceptions to this rule, such as the fact that at the outbreak of World War I, grandchildren of Queen Victoria were the monarchs in Greece, Romania, Denmark, Norway, Germany, Russia, Spain, and the United Kingdom, nations on every side of that conflict. If merging human consciousness with that of a machine became possible, Hordes of people would eagerly line up around the block, the way they do for a big iPhone release. The prospect of immortality in whatever virtual world you can imagine is a pretty strong lure. But there are dystopian scenarios as well. In theory, a sadistic person or AGI could seize control of your virtual universe and torture you beyond belief for 1,000,000 years. That is definitely what is termed in business a downside case. Proponents argue that this is our future, perhaps our not so distant future, and that is the answer to all manners of problems, from environmental degradation to income inequality to rising healthcare costs. Let's just abandon our physical forms. Step into the booth, your body is scanned, instantiated into the machine, and then destroyed. Your experience, however, would be stepping into the booth, then stepping out. Those who think this is possible would argue that you wouldn't even notice, except, of course, that you would then have superhuman powers and have become inexplicably attractive to the opposite sex. And in one sense, the proponents are right. 1,000,000,000,000 people could be kept until the cold death of the universe in a computer requiring only a little energy to sustain it. Copies of that computer in everyone's consciousness could be shot into space to journey to that infinite, empty vastness between galaxies, to run unbothered for all eternity. It would certainly be efficient, that much is certain. There are a great number of unknowns about the whole endeavor. No one knows how much data would need to be collected to copy you into the computer. Is it just a few pieces of data about each neuron and the nature of each synapse? Or do we have to go billions of times deeper into each neuron and gather data on the countless molecules that make up each neuron? I say countless because scientists literally don't know how many molecules make up the brain, let alone the number of atoms. In addition, there may be significant other data requirements having to do with the state of the brain or with the enormous number of chemical reactions that occur in the brain. Because of this, models that try to estimate the computational requirements to model a brain vary by a trillionfold. In this regard, it smacks of the 5 to 500 year estimate for when humans might develop a working AGI. Even if you could figure out how to model the brain, you still have the problem how to get all the data from your brain into the CPU. This is the scanning problem. In theory, there are 3 ways this might be done. The first method is to make a model of the brain based on external imaging. Proportionally speaking, this would be akin to making a complete copy of the Empire State Building and its contents, right down to each individual paperclip and thumbtack, without ever entering the building. If we needed a molecular level resolution, this would be mathematically equivalent to making a copy accurate down to each speck of dust in the building, without ever going inside. Plus, given that the activity of the brain, not merely its contents, is what is key, imagine that there is a great tornado in the Empire State Building blowing everything around at 200 times faster than the fastest tornado ever, the proportional speed at which activity is occurring in your brain. The second option is that you could freeze the brain and take it apart, neuron by neuron, recording the data along the way. Or, even worse, perhaps you have to take it apart a molecule at a time, a task that is of almost inconceivable complexity. But what if it could be done? Would you do it? You go to sleep, your body is frozen, your brain is taken apart one neuron at a time, and the data is recorded in a computer model. When the model is activated, the computer says, I sure hope this works. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, am I in a machine now? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it really worked. Finally, it may be possible to build atomic scale robots, nanites, to crawl around inside your brain, mapping the whole operation. Again, the scale question presents itself. Neurons, molecules, atoms. There are 100 billion neurons in the brain, so counting them is no easy task. However, each neuron is made of 300 trillion atoms, so that's a whole different ballgame. If any of these techniques were accomplished and you got the relevant data and then uploaded it into a computer, what exactly do you have? Is that you? Or is that a copy of you? Or is that a simulation of you? Those are three quite different things. So, those are the two pathways to machine consciousness. The first is that the machines themselves achieve it. The second is that they are the empty vessels into which we upload our consciousness. Can either of these two possible scenarios occur? In both instances, the answer depends on exactly how consciousness comes about. That may sound like a dead end, since I have repeatedly said that we don't know the answer to that question. However, while we don't know how consciousness comes about, there are a great many theories. We can sort all of them into 8 groups, each of which is itself a broad theory. We can then examine each of these 8 theories to see whether, according to that theory, machines could become conscious and we could upload our consciousness to them. Let's examine the 8 theories. Except we're not going to examine the 8 theories. We're going to move on. Now you will read known unknowns independently to establish your understanding. Before reading known unknowns, you're going to answer the question in Nearpod to approach the text. Based on the title, what do you know about the text? Now you will read Harper's Known Unknowns independently. After doing so, as you're reading, consider the reading focus. How does this text describe the potential benefits and challenges which the future of artificial intelligence presents? Known Unknowns is found on pages 83 through 88 in your unit reader. You will have 15 minutes to complete this activity. After answering the question in Nearpod.